Ladies and gentlemen, it is time that the public forgive Louis C.K. It is time to bring Louis C.K. back into the world of entertainment. He's a great comedian. He's better than any other comedian that is out there today. He makes Kevin Hart look corny. You know, if you take the level of comedic talent that Louis C.K. has, then you compare it to any other comedian. Even Dave Chappelle is really not that funny in comparison to Louis C.K. He is up there with the greats. The only comedians who I could compare to Louis C.K. are dead ones. Like George Carlin makes Louis C.K. look corny, but Louis C.K. makes Dave Chappelle look corny. You see what I'm saying there? Like Bill Hicks is on par with George Carlin, and that's sort of the way that I would rank comedians, is like which ones are able to totally outdo the other ones. And the only comedian who I think would rival like the greats like George Carlin would be like Richard Pryor or Eddie Murphy. I think is probably the least corny comedian. Probably the best comedian ever is Eddie Murphy. And then the second best would be like George Carlin. But I'm saying that Louis C.K. as a comedian deserves to be accepted by the comedian landscape. The comedy landscape of 2022 is nothing if they don't defend the wit and just sort of the general demeanor of Louis C.K., what he represents as a comedian, or just as a philosopher. You know, the court gesture is supposed to sit alongside the king. You know, the archetype of the court gesture is that he's supposed to be able to sit next to the king and make criticisms that nobody else in the kingdom is allowed to make. And the reason why the court gesture works and is so vital to a society is that everybody allows the court gesture to be the voice of parody and be the voice of wit and satire, and that Louis C.K. is definitely has that power to be that court jester who can undermine the sort of vapid, shallow cancel culture. Essentially, you know, to undo cancel culture would be to uncancel Louis C.K. We would give him that license first. And I bring up the topic of Elon Musk a lot because he recently acquired Twitter, and one thing that he put forward, which is a new idea in Silicon Valley, or sort of in sort of like the big tech world, the new idea that Elon Musk put out there is the idea of redemption, the redemption arc, sort of like letting a person who's been banned, the end to lifetime bans. I think that's really that's revolutionary. That's a huge innovation on the entire social media landscape. And start with Louis C.K. He might not be banned on every social media platform, but there's just his redemption. Give him his show back. Let him direct another movie. Let Louis C.K. direct a movie and write a movie that has a social and philosophical parody of cancel culture and stuff like that. I think that's what should happen. I was talking to my dad the other day, and we were saying, like, why doesn't like Kevin Spacey, Louis C.K., all of them, who are really iconic, talented actors, admittedly probably fucked up people in the back, in the back end, behind the scenes and stuff. Everybody in entertainment is admittedly fucked up. Like, you can't point to any celebrity who's that famous and that rich and has that many people who recognize their face and have them not be fucked up. Like, you don't think Tom Cruise is fucked up? Like, he's probably a cool dude, but he's just completely original. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's just nothing like you or me because he's just had a life that's completely original to that one human being. Like, he's just totally a maverick, just himself. It's like, Logan Paul, like he's a maverick and stuff like that. But that's my point. You know what I mean? Like, we need to give Louis C.K. that license to be that parody. And Dave Chappelle was a good example of that. Dave Chappelle's not, in my opinion, that good of a comedian in 2022. Old Dave Chappelle, now that's legendary. I mean, old Dave Chappelle, don't get me started. He's up there with the greats. That's what solidifies his legacy. And even modern Dave Chappelle, 2022, current year Dave Chappelle, is better than 99% of the comedians who are out there today by far. Let that be said. But the fact of the matter is that the standard of comedy, the overtune window of the comedy world has shifted to the point where mainstream comedians themselves are more like just social media influencers at this point. But that being said, Dave Chappelle as a symbol, in the what he did, whatever you think about the guy himself, and not to make any not to give any opinion about any of the specifics, I'm just saying the fact that he caused controversy for a lot of different topics, we're just mutually exclusively on a lot of different fronts. He innovated and challenged the status quo, and challenged and risked sort of being canceled himself. And Dave Chappelle innovated and showed that it's possible for his section of his voice and the aspects of the comedy world that he represents and the philosophical notions that he puts forward through his act. But when we look at somebody like Louis C.K., it still hasn't happened yet. But I think Netflix should give Louis C.K. a comeback special. It should be controversial beyond belief, and it should be, it'll make $1 million. Somebody put that idea out there, and I think we should all, if you guys support Louis C.K. and you think that this is a decent idea, if he's done his time in the gulag, he's ready to return to the public scene. The same thing sort of with, I hate to say it, but like, it kind of happened with Mel Gibson too, but I think now, because Mel Gibson was a talented actor, but just an admittedly fucked up guy, just a crazy lunatic, but it makes very interesting media. Look at the names that Weinstein's, look at the movie titles that Weinstein is attached to. He's attached to a lot of good movies. They make good media content that's interesting to watch, but they're fucked up people. Same thing with Jeffrey Dahmer, like the fascination that people have with Jeffrey Dahmer, like fucked up guy, but somehow inspired some really interesting media to watch. Same with like George Lucas, probably a really messed up dude behind the scenes. Steven Spielberg, get out of here. He's the weirdest dude behind the scenes, but for some reason he's able to come up with Jaws. And thing that, outsider thinking and stuff like that. So that's my argument to uncancel Louis C.K. Hashtag uncancel Louis C.K. Put it out there 1 million times, because what do you want for a comedian? You don't respect comedy as a craft if you think that the likes of Amy Schumer and stuff like that are the ones that need to be prominent. And we can't allow just sort of like this machine, this grinding machine that is like cancel culture, to sort of uproot people like Louis C.K. and stuff like that, just because of one sort of astroturfed attempt to get him canceled by like people who tweet about him. And I think that now the tools are finally available for society to sort of use the tools that are available, namely Twitter, but Twitter then leading by example. Even like, whatever you think about Elon, whatever you think about the platform, he's still the richest guy in the world. You're not the richest person in the world. He is smart enough to run that platform. And that means that the Twitter, as its functionality and the original philosophy behind the website and what can be built on top of that, does represent a complete and total overhaul in the public discourse and the public conversation. And finally, people are able to have an intellectual conversation on whatever topic it is, because everybody needs to worry about being banned, whatever your political affiliations are, no matter who you are and what you do. You shouldn't support other people being banned. You should, if people break community guidelines, and they deserve to be, then leave it up to the platform to ban them, and leave it up to the people who design the algorithms to design them to be fair. But it's not up to people, it's not up to individual accounts to celebrate other people being banned. Like, you should be algorithmically demoted if you celebrate other people being banned. Like, that's another idea to give to Elon. He already kind of did that when he banned H3H3, who's just like a fallen YouTuber. So those are my, and put an end to that sort of stuff. Let the mob decide, let the community decide. Put an end to these social media platforms deciding, trying to curate content and sort of push the point of view in a certain direction when it comes to things that are just supposed to be funny and entertaining. And Louis C.K.'s show is good, and his stand-up comedy specials are funny, and they're better than most comedy specials that come out today. And he's a voice that we need. And I saw videos of Louis C.K. and he's coming back. Like, this is all something that's going to happen. Like, I predict the return of Louis C.K. Hashtag uncancel Louis C.K. Buster Friendly's behind you, bro. Send this to Louis C.K. They're all like, The internet's behind you. We all, as a collective consciousness, are starting to cast aside a lot of sort of the cable TV programming and the thought megastructures that were, proliferated in the early 2000s. But now this new generation, Gen Z, has the ability to sort of reevaluate where I think the millennials went wrong. Because let's face it, it was up to the millennials to sort of guard their heroes. And they sold them down the river for clicks, because I think one of the bad things that happened was Twitter algorithmically promoted people for turning against their heroes. And then these sellouts, these millennial sellouts, basically with their social media accounts, realized that they could get cheap clicks by bashing the name of their heroes. And what resulted was brands responding in kind, and then the cancellation of these these people who would have produced these good projects that would have made good innovations for entertainment. And that's the whole point. You know what I mean? It's like we need to understand these people are entertainers, and maybe we do put entertainers too high on a pedestal. Maybe that's something that needs to be taken into consideration, because they're always going to be entertainers, always going to be celebrities among us. But I think maybe the internet's made it possible for everybody to be a celebrity and everybody to be sort of viral for their own individual thing. And maybe the future we won't have people who have this huge influence and stuff like that, because the average people like you and me will have a say, and we'll decide our representative for the comedy world. So yeah, let me know what you think. You think I'm full of shit? Do you think Louis C.K. is a good comedian? I think he's probably one of the best currently around, and I think that they need to and also return Alex Jones to Twitter. That's the other thing. Return Alex Jones to Twitter. Twitter, just right now, Elon needs to make an example that it works, that allowing the user base to function whatever way it wants to works. That's just something that needs to be understood through the halls of power among these big tech places, because all these different alternatives to these social media platforms and stuff are gaining a lot of power as well. You look at Rumble, you look even what Kanye did. I don't know how successful he's going to be with his acquisition of that social media platform, but that's a huge jump forward as far as what we're going to be watching unfolding in the algorithms of cyberspace, and how a lot of these different things are going to move forward. It's going to influence politics. Just look at all the different things that have been unfolding. But namely, for me, I think that the comedy world still has this opportunity right now to redeem Louis C.K. Because they wouldn't have done that to George Carlin back in his generation. Think of it that way. Like, they wouldn't have sold George Carlin down the river because of something as stupid as Twitter, or something as stupid as cancel culture. Like, someone like Bill Hicks or someone like George Carlin would have stood up to that sort of thing. And don't get me wrong, even cancel culture in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. It does have its place. I'm just saying, like, maybe it was too out of hand when it was first invented and stuff like that. And I think Louis C.K. deserves to be back in a public spotlight. And I think that sort of thing. And that wasn't even my idea. This idea has been around a while. I've seen another YouTuber saying, like, to uncancel Louis C.K. So I know this is a popular opinion, and I know his fans out there would like to see it. Dude, just watch his show. He has a genuine sense of humor, that guy. Like, he's just like a grounded. And what did he even do? Like, he's someone who didn't even do that. I don't know what he did. Like, I'm not speaking on what happened to him. I'm just saying he should still be allowed to be a creator. He's not in jail. Just, like, let him make some content, like, let him get back on. Or, even he should just do it himself. But, yeah, hashtag uncancel Louis C.K. Buster Friendly. Appreciate you watching. Have a great day.